Yeah, welcome to another episode of the Racer X Exhaust Podcast. So Ryan Dungey and I hopped on a Zoom call last Monday after Anaheim won, and you folks really liked it. So I decided, well, let's just do it again. Who knows? Maybe the interviews will get boring. Maybe this series will get boring. But for as long as it's good, we'll just keep on doing it. Of course, I'm Jason Weigandt from Racer X. You can get a Racer X tumbler for your coffee. So subscribe now. Go to racerxonline.com/Weege. I already had a cup of coffee from my man Ryan Dungey at rdcoffees.com. I want to thank our sponsors. That's yoshimura-rd.com, Yoshimura Exhaust. They've got something that you need for your motorcycle, your side-by-side, street bikes, dirt bikes, you name it. Exhaust systems, the RS12 looking really good with the factory Honda machines of Roczen and Sexton and the Lawrence brothers. So go to yoshimura-rd.com. They're always backing our show. And follow them on social media, and they put some really cool videos together on their YouTube channel. So just type in Yoshimura in the search, find their channel, and you'll see some really cool behind-the-scenes videos of working with a lot of their race teams. Also, this year brought to you by Liat. Different people ride for different reasons, yet there is a common denominator that binds everyone who puts their body on the line for the sheer enjoyment of it, and that's what Liat offers as a brand. They make protective wear, helmets, goggles, riding gear, knee braces, boots, and neck braces, of course, covering riders from head to toe for both moto and for mountain bike. But what Liat really stands for is the promise of things to come. They're in the business of making sure that you have the confidence in the equipment to push yourself faster, harder, and further than you thought you could. Go to Liat.com, Leatt.com. Let's roll out our theme song, and then we'll talk to Ryan Dungey.
Podcast. 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 Podcast.
So Anaheim 1 is nuts. Anaheim 1 is crazy. I'd forgotten this, by the way. You actually never won Anaheim 1. You obviously had a successful career. So the first thing I want to hit is, how much does it just feel different going into round 2 and 3 like this? Is round 1 like a totally different experience compared to the other races? Your results say it was different for you.
Yeah, I mean, round 1 for me, it was just always the nerves. It's like, okay, you're back on the gate, the nerves, and my mentality was always the long play championship. You know, it was you didn't think about it all the time, but it was in the back of your head, and everything kind of stems from that, all the decisions you make. So, but round 2 and 3 definitely, definitely kind of getting more comfortable. I think, round 2, you still haven't seen all the cards of each. You haven't seen everybody's best yet. There's so many factors, right? Like, what kind of a threat a guy is, right? How does he do when he gets a bad start? What's he do under pressure? How does he do? What's his strength and weaknesses? So that stuff doesn't really come out to around 3, 4, and 5, roughly, I would say. But definitely for me, I was getting more. I wasn't really getting into my element probably until rounds 3 and 4.
Well, that makes perfect sense, because almost every year, the first 2 rounds, we get 2 kind of surprising winners. And I can't say Ken Roczen and Jason Anderson are shockers, but Cooper Webb hasn't won yet, or Eli Tomac hasn't won yet. And it always looks like it's going a certain direction, and it never goes that direction. It's like the first 2 rounds, write them off. It's so odd how that works.
Yeah, the one thing I would say, as a championship contender, establishing yourself, if you can do that like right off the bat and like get that momentum. When I think back to 2016, when I was able to get that first win, then at round 2 and then 3, and then for me, like, it was the momentum, and then it's like you just that's really good for a rider. But when I look back at 2015, I didn't win my first race till round 5.
Yeah.
And if that didn't happen, I probably wouldn't have built that momentum, and it probably wouldn't have gone on the way it did. So, if you're trying to kind of control this thing and really put your stamp on it, like Cooper Webb, like you want to get out there and start winning these races, and you have to especially early on, you're going to have to stack some races up to win this championship too.
But not the first 2. If you don't win either the first 2, that's not a huge problem. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But you also don't want to be at a deficit of too many points.
Right.
You don't want to have to make up too much either. So if you're not winning, you should be like on the podium or like right off of it. You need to like be right there.
Do you think the guys have a good enough feel if you're sick or your bike's not quite where it wants to be, where you can be like, yeah, I know the result is a 6th and that's disappointing, or an 8th, but I know that I'm not there? Or is it hard to just see the result on paper and not freak out a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not feeling it on the night, I mean, that's going to happen a lot, right? I mean, you're always there's always going to be situations. I mean, 9 times out of 10, my bike didn't feel great, at every race.
Oh, come on. Are you serious? There's always something.
No, I mean, the 450 is just a different animal.
Wow.
And, that was another learning curve, right? You start chasing this bike and the setup at the beginning of the day, and then all of a sudden you're testing all day and you're not comfortable, and then your confidence is shot because you don't know what the bike's going to react, how it's going to react to. So the bike's not always going to feel good, but I think it's, if you're not feeling it on the day, you got to go give it your best. And that's what it is. And I can't really say too much to that because it is a little bit different today than it was in my day. There's a lot of guys who could win a race on any given night, where there wasn't in my time too, but I feel like it was more, the guys were more separated as far as speed and stuff. So it is a little different. I can't like criticize it too much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. We kind of say this, like when you're racing against RV and Reed and Stu, for example, that's like at the top. You can't really get any gnarlier than that. Right. Racing Stu, RV, you, and Reed. But maybe now maybe the top is maybe not quite that. Those are 4 legends. But at the same time, there's maybe like 8 guys now that we think could win instead of 4 or something like that.
Yeah, the inconsistency is probably going to be more throughout the field finishes just because there are so many guys. Does that make sense?
No, it does. We've always made the joke, like it didn't matter what you did, you were going to get 4th at worst, or Chad was going to get 4th at worst, or RV is going to get 4th. You're never getting 8th. It's just never happening. Yeah. But what I'm getting at, I think you told me 2015 you came in, you were sick or something leading into the race, something like that?
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm getting at is you're able to, okay, Ken Roczen wins the opener, whoever wins the opener that year, you're able to be like, I'm not even looking at the result right now. I know I'm not 100%. I know I'll get better. I'm not going to look at the piece of paper at the end of the night and freak out because I know I got to deal with X, and I'll just worry about that instead of the result tonight.
Yeah. Especially after 1 or 2 rounds, you're not.
Right.
The thing as a rider, if you're looking to win this championship, you're looking at all the guys as a whole. Like, how do they perform on a championship as a whole? You evaluate, how are they under pressure? How is their consistency throughout the year? How's their starts? Yep. And so, even you, and then when you can kind of face those times with each rider and like you can beat them head on, well, that's okay. You never underestimate the guy, but you almost gain that confidence. Like, okay, I have that area covered. Now let's keep, so it's
the overall
evaluation.
Right. So the overall point I'm getting at is when we look at these first 2 races, there could be someone who has, gotten a 4th or an 8th or something that might actually be the best guy of this group. We just haven't seen that yet. That could be hiding somewhere in this pack.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I for sure think that's the case. And 100% get bike set up. Everybody's getting the bike setup style and a little bit more. And so by round 4 or 5, I would say we're going to see like the top, who those top guys.
That makes it exciting. Makes us keep guessing, but we got to give credit where it's due. Jason Anderson. Hey, he could have been on the podium at Anaheim 1 if he doesn't get knocked down. Probably would have been the points later in that case. And ifs and buts, that's just a racing thing. But he's definitely riding awesome. It's only 2 rounds, but he sure looks good in the Kawasaki early.
Yeah, I will say it's dangerous for those other guys because he's won a championship before. Now he's tasted victory. He's got a whole new program, so everything's new. There's new motivation. There's excitement, and that's really good for a rider. I mean, from experience, like you make some changes, and you're in a better state of mind. And he's even said all this stuff. So I think he's found this new belief in himself, his team. He's got this win now. He knows he believes, like really believes he can do it. So that'll be interesting how this plays out with him.
Wow. Yeah. And Anaheim 1, I think, was underrated. He was making passes. He was going forward. So this isn't just he got a good start at round 2, but this seems somewhat legit. I know it's early, but both races were actually pretty good for him.
Yep. They are. And just backing up to like what we were talking about, you can't evaluate too much at round 1 or 2, but you don't want to like be giving these guys all this, if you're Cooper, you're giving these guys all this momentum and you don't want that too much to happen. So you got to kind of squash it before it gets out of control.
Okay. And Justin Barcia is the points leader. He's always good at the beginning of the year. So here's my theory. Everybody's nervous. I think he's just either less nervous or he deals with it better than everyone else. Because this has happened like 7 years now where he's awesome early in the year. So I got to think there's a reason. Everybody's nervous. He's probably better with that than others. What do you think? Because Barcia's always so good early in the year.
Yeah, I know. And he's always been a good opening round. He's won a bunch of them, like Kenny. I can't really say too much to it other than the year wears on guys different than others, So one guy, he's really strong through 10 rounds and then the last 7 are mediocre. It's a long season, and that's part of the other battle you're dealing with as a rider. It's like the mental load. And that just wears a guy out sometimes, just how your perspective on things and but as far as Barcia, heck, you're in a good spot. And that's another guy you've given him. He's getting some confidence. He's got the red plate, and that's I think he's won races before, so he knows he can do it. It's just more, now he's the points leader, but you're not really sitting thinking about that too much because it's such a long series. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And that the points are ridiculous right now. It's like 10 guys with an 8 or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I watch these races, it takes me like a week to like process what all just happened, because there's so much going on from the race to the championship level. So there's so much to kind of process here.
Oh yeah. We got this very small sample size too. So you're probably like overanalyzing every pass or every start because it'll all average out. Aaron Plessinger, same thing. I know you want to talk about him. Like it was 2 different riders completely. I cannot tell you how bad he looked in practice at Anaheim 1. Ryan, he looked horrible, and he was 19th fastest. I did not know 7 days later he would be arguably the best guy. He was catching Anderson at one point, and he got second.
I know. And I knew we didn't see the best of AP at Anaheim 1. I knew that. Now, what did I expect him to get second? Like, I thought that probably would have been far off, but the fact that he got a good start, he looked way more comfortable on the bike. He got better through the day. The heat race looked a little rough, but he got a good start, positioned himself good, was able to kind of get clear track and show what he's capable of. And those are the types of things like you maybe haven't seen yet from all the guys. And so when you don't get a clear track, you're behind all the guys and you're fighting for positionings and you can't really show your true best. But the fact that he was able to get a good start and he's got the speed, dang there, put a run in on Anderson, didn't really drop off too far from him. So there's another confidence booster for a guy. And that's huge, especially on a new team, new bike. It's a big step.
Oakland is funny because, the stadium is super old. The area around the stadium is a little bit rough. I'm just going to go that far. But I was joking over the weekend that we Supercross people, we rate stadiums on their dirt. Like St. Louis's stadium is kind of okay. It's not the worst thing, but it has awesome dirt, and we all know this. The Oakland dirt, it elevates the race. What did you think about racing in Oakland? Because it looks awesome when you see the track build.
I thought it was good. There's I know the ruts probably got deep, and the track was challenging, and the whoops were that goat line through was pretty nasty. But for the most part, if I'm looking at it as a rider, it wasn't the worst conditions, and it had some good traction, good moisture, and looked like a good racing track.
Yeah, but did you think each year when you went to Oakland, like, that is pretty good dirt? Forget the stadium conditions. The dirt is good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, when the gate drops, at the end of the day, you're there to race. But, it's everybody favors more tacky dirt, more moisture in it for sure. And, us dirt bikers and our obsession for good dirt, other people who outside the dirt bikes are like, dude, what are they talking about?
Exactly. Like the
dirt is awesome.
Yeah, you go to all these cool cities, and like St. Louis and Oakland are like real high in everybody's list because the dirt is good. It's just funny how that works. Look, we did not see much going on. I'm in the press box watching this, and I'm just looking at the track at like the last 10 minutes of the race. Not much is going on. Some of these 20-minute mains feel like they're over in a hurry. Some of them feel like they take forever. Do you think sometimes when the track is a little challenging that it does turn into a bit of a like, I'm in 5th or whatever it might be, and I just got to survive right now?
Yeah. I mean, especially on a track that's softer, like the first 2 rounds, the tracks have gotten rutted and you kind of settle in really. A lot of the work is done at the beginning of the race, unless the guy's coming through the pack, which we haven't seen too much of that. But at that point of the race, you're kind of where you're at, and you're making little gains, and especially the whoops. Everybody, it was that goat line. They're just jumping through them. So it's at that point you're almost waiting for a guy to make a mistake more than trying to really run him down and catch him. And if you're catching them, you're probably catching them little bits at a time, but more counting on a mistake.
That goat line, man. Would you seriously be thinking about that all the way around the track? Because it seemed like the line between disaster and getting through there was so thin. To me, it'd be tough to not be thinking about, oh, here it comes. Whoops, I'm almost to the whoops again.
Yeah, that is the case for sure. You think about the thing the whole way around the track where it takes away. But when I was watching that race, because I've always been the guy, like, I hate goat lines because what we seen to Kenny in practice, it'll catch.
Yep.
And when I was on a 250, that never happened. That ass end like never caught. I never had that problem. But on a 450, you have all that inertia, that weight, and if you catch that edge a little bit, it'll slap you down pretty hard. So I was always the guy. I'm like, I'm gonna blitz the whoops rather than trying to take this dang goat line.
So you hated that. Like that was something.
Yeah. There's so much room for error there. There's so much, you can make so much money there. You can get caught in a bad situation, and before you know it, you're down. You can't regain control of the bike.
Well, that's exactly what happened. Let's talk about Ken Roczen here. Hero last week, really rough one this time. People pointed out there are a few times you've seen Roczen go down on whoops, but to me that's pretty rare. That whoops are not a weakness of his, but it got him, and then the other whoops got him in the main. That was a rough one.
Yeah, and that was the thing when I look back at, especially the mistake in the practice. I mean, it was just like all of it caught him before he knew. And I don't know if it was a bike setup issue, if it was a mistake on his part. I mean, they were pretty nasty whoops, but the fact that he made him another mistake in the heat race as well, it just caught him off guard.
Yeah, it has to. I would have to think it weighs in your mind like that. That could have been really bad, that practice crash. So do you think that weighs on? I don't want you to have to put yourself in his mind, but would it generally, at least for you, weigh on your mind a little bit for the rest of the night after a big crash like that in the afternoon?
100%. No, the fact that when something like that happens in the heat race, it kind of sets the tone from that point. I mean, it's mentally, it's hard to get over like what just happened. And that's really tough to do, but you have to do it. But when that happened and then the crash, and then he's probably banged up a little bit, and it's just kind of, you frazzled it, set the tone the rest of the night. And you're thinking about that versus thinking about racing. So being in that position, for sure, that crash probably affected him going into the night show for sure, mentally.
Yeah. And Cooper Webb had kind of a so-so night. He kind of salvaged it. Seventh isn't great, but there are some other really good riders like Roczen had it even worse. He did say after the race, I saw on like the KTM PR that he was sick. So that goes back to like 2015, what you were dealing with, and that's what I'm getting at. Do you think he can separate? Seventh is terrible. Yes, I know that. But I know that's not the real me. That's got to be tough to do, but I guess that's what makes you a champion, right? You got to be able to separate the two things and not be too bummed.
I think so. Well, granted, you're telling me this now. I didn't know that he was sick. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure there was something at play there because he didn't come through the pack. So that was surprising. But yeah, if he's battling something, and obviously like, having to deal with that on race day, and I mean, as a rider, like, okay, when I get better, I'm going to be much more better than that performance. Mm-hmm. So for sure. And he's dug himself out of a hole a couple times already. So I think with how much competition there is, the inconsistency of the guys, there's a lot more opportunity to dig yourself out of a hole versus, just trying to, but yeah, I think for sure he can separate that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like he's not 12 points down or something like that. He's actually like tied for second, just the way the crazy math has worked out. Yeah.
Exactly.
But were you I didn't know about the sickness thing until after the race. Yeah. So were you a little surprised? Like, were you waiting for him to go and it wasn't happening?
I was. And I was even thinking last night, I'm like, I wonder if he was dealing with something. And now you're telling me this. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense, because Cooper, he's always been a guy who's able to kind of come through the pack when he gets a bad start. And even when I watched him, he looked flat. He just looked like the intensity wasn't there. He wasn't like driving through the rhythm sections, like he was conserving energy. Yeah. And that was a sign like, okay, maybe there's more to this than we're seeing. So the fact that he's sick, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Only other guys, the Yamaha guys, man, their starts just aren't good enough. That's all I got for them. You know they're
Yeah.
going to be burning some clutches this
Man.
week.
Yeah, people like, yeah, we get it. We know you need a good start, but it's like, it is so crucial today, in this day of racing, you have to get a good start. You have to, if you want to get a good finish.
I feel like you were always fairly consistent. I don't know if I'm not going to say you're Michael Lessie with your starts, but I don't remember like I don't remember like a run of like 15 races in a row where you were buried. But do you have an example? Like, did you ever get to the point where you're like, okay, I got to stop practicing these. We have to stop. We're overthinking it. We're over trying with the starts during the week.
The two things that I always went off of was when I was testing my bike, if the rear felt soft, right? Or if there was something in the rear that gave it a squat, or I didn't have the positioning, that was a good indicator that I didn't feel like that it wasn't going to be good on the starts, because especially now you have all that traction with the grit, that gate, you have all that traction coming off the gate. So if that thing's bouncing and squatting, and it's going to mess up your drive forward. So that I wanted that thing to really be positioned well and kind of stay there, but absorb the ruts or the bumps coming out of the gate. So that was one thing I always evaluated on, but also two, what I thought was awesome is you did 5 starts every time you finished practicing. So you did your motos, did your sprints. At the end of the day, you go and do 5 starts, no more, because the clutch gets hot. You just wear yourself out. If you're doing 50 starts, it's like you're kind of going backwards, learning bad habits, if anything. And so I did 5 starts, you do them. And if you messed up, fix it, but do 5 really good starts, and usually try to do it with somebody else so you can get that reaction time. And I guess the other thing, that's why it's really important to live in the moment and focus on yourself, because if you're on the gate and you can focus on that gate and ready for that bar to move and go and execute, your reaction time is going to be a lot quicker. But if you're thinking about everything else and everything's bothering you, and you're trying to worry about things that are out of your control, your reaction time is going to be slower, because it's just you're not 100% right there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what we're saying is you don't go too crazy. Don't do 500 practice starts in a week or 100 practice starts, and don't go to the gate thinking about five different things. You've got to just almost create a little box and just stay in that box. Don't go crazy.
Quality.
Yeah. Yep.
Quality over quantity.
Okay. Yeah. So that would be your thing.
Yeah,
no, it makes sense though, because it seems like just like the testing, right? You could probably start chasing your tail, overthinking it, and then making things worse. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I'm sure they're tired of hearing it. I mean, Ferrandis and Tomac we're looking at them as Yamaha teammates now, but they just haven't been great starters their whole career. So we're looking at it like the Yamaha teammates thing, but they just are who they are. I think sometimes they're just not. They're not Michael Lessie. Let's put it that way.
No, and when I raced Tomac, the one thing that greatly I benefited from was him getting bad starts, more so in 15 and 16, I would say. 17, he was definitely better, but like in 15, I remember he, that was one area where I didn't have to worry about him some races, because I would get out front and be able to get away, and he was trying to come through the pack. So, I mean, it's the only place you can pass every guy,
That's right.
So,
that's right. Yep. So they might just have to come through. That might just be the way it is. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you see in Oakland, or are we good? And we'll do another one of these. Yep.
Yes, sir. No, that was good. Lots happening here. So gotta wrap my head around it all. But
it is.
It's exciting. It really is.
Absolutely. And yeah, same thing. End of the night, it's like, I can't remember how the guy that got eighth, because they're, 5 different guys could have finished eighth at different points. It's crazy. Yeah. That's what makes it fun. All right. RD Coffees, and we'll see you next week. And thanks for doing this as usual. Yep.
You too. Have a good week. Thanks.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, Ryan.
Cheers.
Yep.